When people think of Jujutsu Kaisen, one name stands above almost everyone else: Ryomen Sukuna. Feared as the King of Curses, he's far more than just the series' ultimate villain. His existence is deeply tied to Yuji Itadori's fate, and throughout the story, he never misses an opportunity to torment him. But Sukuna wasn't simply born as the monster we know today. Every legend has an origin, and his is one of the darkest in the series. So today, let's trace his journey from the very beginning and uncover how he became the most terrifying curse in history. More than 1,000 years before the current timeline, Sukuna's life started under horrific circumstances. While still in his mother's womb, she was pushed to the brink of starvation. To survive, the unborn Sukuna absorbed his own twin brother, ensuring that only one of them would live. It was a gruesome beginning that set the tone for the life he would eventually lead. As he grew older, his incredible cursed energy and overwhelming talent made him anything but ordinary. Rather than seeing him as another human being, people viewed him as something dangerous, someone who needed to be eliminated before he became unstoppable. Constantly treated as a threat, Sukuna gradually isolated himself from everyone around him. Instead of seeking companionship, he embraced violence, using fear and brutality to keep others at a distance. Any trace of empathy faded away, replaced by a mindset where strength was the only thing that mattered. Ironically, that ruthless approach only made the situation worse. His reputation continued to spread, and the Jujutsu world eventually concluded that someone as dangerous as Sukuna couldn't be allowed to exist. During the Heian era, often called the Golden Age of Jujutsu, he slaughtered countless sorcerers, cementing the terrifying legacy that would earn him the title of King of Curses. Despite pushing almost everyone away, there was one person Sukuna chose to keep by his side: Uraume. Unlike everyone else, Uraume admired Sukuna's philosophy and overwhelming strength, eventually becoming his most loyal follower. Their bond would last far beyond the Heian era itself. As time passed, Sukuna's power continued to reach unimaginable heights. His reputation spread across Japan until he found himself facing the elite forces of the Fujiwara clan. Armed with his legendary cursed tools, Haiten and Kamutoke, Sukuna overwhelmed entire squads of powerful sorcerers without much difficulty, leaving destruction wherever he went. Surprisingly, those victories didn't only inspire fear. In some regions, people went as far as worshiping him like a god, offering prayers during harvest festivals instead of seeing him as a simple human. Around this time, Yorozu attempted to get closer to Sukuna, believing he needed companionship. Uraume immediately drove her away, and when she refused to give up, Sukuna personally attacked her. To him, the very idea that he desired friendship or emotional connection was almost insulting. Eventually, Sukuna's original life came to an end, but that wasn't truly the end of him. Before his death, Kenjaku helped create a plan that would allow Sukuna to return in the distant future. His immense power was divided into 20 indestructible cursed objects, each one preserving a fragment of his soul. As long as those fingers continued to exist, Sukuna's resurrection would always remain possible. Over the centuries, those fingers became incredibly dangerous. They weren't created to attack people directly. Their purpose was simply to survive until Sukuna could be reborn. However, as hundreds of years passed, the cursed energy sealed within them only became stronger. Their presence attracted powerful curses wherever they appeared, forcing jujutsu sorcerers to lock them away behind powerful seals. Eventually, those seals began to weaken. One of Sukuna's fingers had been stored inside a small box at Sugisawa High School. Had it remained hidden, Sukuna's return may have been delayed much longer. But fate had other plans. The school's occult club stumbled upon the finger while investigating local supernatural rumors. Whether this happened by pure coincidence or because Kenjaku secretly manipulated events behind the scenes has never been confirmed, although it's certainly a possibility. Regardless of how it happened, everything changed the moment Yuji Itadori swallowed the finger. For the first time in centuries, Ryomen Sukuna had finally returned. His intention was simple: reclaim his freedom and unleash chaos upon the world once again. But there was one unexpected problem. Instead of completely taking over Yuji's body, he found himself sharing it with someone whose will was strong enough to suppress him. For perhaps the first time in his existence, the King of Curses had been trapped inside someone else's body. After taking over Yuji's body, Sukuna wasted no time revealing his true nature. His goal was exactly what you'd expect from someone called the King of Curses: to slaughter anyone who stood in his way and reclaim the freedom he'd lost centuries ago. But things didn't go according to plan. To Sukuna's surprise, Yuji was able to suppress him almost immediately, regaining control of his own body whenever he wanted. For someone who had never been challenged like this before, being trapped inside a vessel he couldn't fully dominate was an entirely new experience. Not long after, at Gojo's request, Yuji willingly switched places with Sukuna. Confident as ever, Sukuna tried to intimidate the strongest sorcerer alive, only to be completely outclassed. At that point, he possessed just one of his 20 fingers worth of power, making him far too weak to stand against Gojo. Although he was forced to retreat, Sukuna made one thing clear: he intended to settle the score the next time they met. Before disappearing, he even questioned why someone as powerful as Gojo wasn't the one leading Jujutsu Society, showing just how little respect he had for its leadership. Soon after, Yuji and his classmates were sent to the detention center to deal with a special grade cursed womb. When the situation spiraled out of control, Sukuna finally seized another opportunity to emerge. Inside the facility, he quickly encountered the Finger Bearer. Rather than forming an alliance with another curse, Sukuna effortlessly cut it down, proving he had no interest in cooperating with anyone beneath him. When Yuji attempted to take back control, something unexpected happened. He couldn't. Realizing he had complete freedom for the moment, Sukuna couldn't hide his excitement. Instead of escaping immediately, he stepped outside and did something far more sinister. He ripped Yuji's own heart out of his chest. Since Sukuna could survive without it while controlling the body, he turned Yuji's greatest weakness into insurance. The moment Yuji regained control, he'd have no choice but to die. With that taken care of, Sukuna turned his attention toward Megumi Fushiguro. At first, he seemed disappointed by Megumi's performance, believing he wasn't living up to his potential. But everything changed the instant Megumi prepared to summon Mahoraga. That single moment convinced Sukuna that Megumi possessed something incredibly valuable. Before he could explore that idea any further, Yuji forced his way back into control, fully accepting death if it meant stopping Sukuna's rampage. But death wasn't the end. Inside Sukuna's innate domain, he offered Yuji a deal that seemed simple on the surface. If Yuji agreed to his conditions, Sukuna would bring him back to life. Hidden within that agreement, however, was a dangerous binding vow known as Enchain. After reviving Yuji, Sukuna erased all memory of that particular condition, ensuring his future trump card remained a secret. Later, when Yuji found himself desperate enough to beg Sukuna for help, the King of Curses responded with nothing but laughter. Whether Sukuna was actually capable of saving Junpei remains a topic of debate, but one thing is certain: he had absolutely no intention of trying. Not long afterward, Mahito made the mistake of touching Yuji's soul with his idol transfiguration. In reality, that also meant interfering with Sukuna's soul. Sukuna issued a single warning: ignore it once more, and there would be consequences. Mahito didn't listen. The next time Yuji entered Mahito's domain expansion, Mahito once again came into contact with Sukuna's soul. True to his word, Sukuna retaliated instantly, effortlessly, striking Mahito down and making it painfully clear that no one was allowed to invade his soul without permission. As the story continued, another important detail quietly emerged. During the Kyoto Goodwill event, Kenjaku instructed the curses not to interfere with one particular student because that person was important to Sukuna. That student was Megumi Fushiguro. At the time, the reason remained a complete mystery. But in hindsight, it was one of the earliest clues that Sukuna had already set his sights on Megumi for a much larger plan. Sukuna's interest in Megumi only became more obvious during the event surrounding the bridge curse. After Megumi defeated the finger bearer, Sukuna immediately took advantage of the situation. Before Yuji had any chance to react, he forced the cursed finger into their shared body, increasing his strength to a total of 4 fingers. It wasn't a massive jump in power, but it brought him one step closer to reclaiming his former self. Then came the Shibuya incident, where Sukuna finally began making serious progress toward his long-term goals. While Yuji was left barely alive after his battle with Choso, Sukuna sensed his condition from within. He seemed genuinely surprised that Choso had spared Yuji's life, though that surprise wouldn't last long. Not long afterward, followers working alongside Kenjaku force-fed another finger to Yuji, hoping Sukuna would lend them his power. Before anything could happen, Jogo arrived with an even more ambitious plan. Instead of offering just one finger, Jogo forced Yuji to consume 10 additional fingers, all in at once. The overwhelming surge of cursed energy immediately allowed Sukuna to seize control. With 15 fingers now restored, his presence alone was enough to overwhelm everyone nearby. The sheer pressure of his cursed energy created panic before he had even made a move. Jogo hoped Sukuna would join forces with the cursed spirits, but Sukuna wasn't interested in blind cooperation. Instead, he proposed a simple challenge. If Jogo could land even a single hit on him, Sukuna would agree to help eliminate every human in Shibuya, with one very specific exception: Megumi Fushiguro. Again, Sukuna's fixation on Megumi quietly hinted that something much bigger was being planned behind the scenes. The fight itself wasn't much of a contest. Jogo unleashed some of the strongest fire techniques seen in the series, but Sukuna handled everything effortlessly. He wasn't fighting to survive. He was entertaining himself. At several points, he even wandered away from Jogo entirely, just to toy with nearby sorcerers before casually returning to finish the battle. To Sukuna, the entire encounter felt more like a game than a serious fight. After proving the enormous gap between their strength, Sukuna acknowledged Jogo's determination before ending the battle with overwhelming force. Soon afterward, Sukuna sensed a familiar presence. For the first time in centuries, he reunited with Ryomen. That reunion was cut short almost immediately. The moment Sukuna realized Megumi's life was in danger, he disappeared without hesitation. Haruta had unknowingly interfered with Megumi's battle against Mahoraga, causing the ritual to continue. Sukuna kept Haruta alive just long enough to preserve the ritual, rescued Megumi from certain death, and chose to face Mahoraga himself.